Good evening and welcome to our MasterChef webinar. As people are joining us, we're going to get started in a minute or so. So welcome. Hello and welcome to one of today's Tiger Alumni Week webinars, a masterclass with celebrity chef Gale Gand. I'm Sharon Lanther, AVP for Advancement Operations at RIT and your moderator this evening. Before I introduce our speaker, there are a few housekeeping points I want to go over. All attendees have joined in mute mode. However, your questions can be entered in the Q&A box at any time throughout the discussion. We will make every effort to address all your comments and questions throughout the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and made available in the upcoming weeks. Communication with how to access the recordings will be sent out and also posted on our website. If you have technical questions, please feel free to type those into the chat box as well, and we will do our best to get you the appropriate answers. We would like to thank our premier sponsor, Sharp Notions, as well as our Tiger sponsor, Rochester Regional Health, for helping make this week's programming possible. We also would like to thank our Access Services teams for helping us make this webinar accessible for all of our alumni. Real-time captioning is available within the webinar, and our interpreters will be spotlighted during the presentation. The pandemic has had a major impact on everyone, including our students. We thank all of our alumni and friends for the support you have already given to our students during these uncertain times. If you're interested in supporting or continuing your support, make sure to mark your calendars for this year's Roar Day, which will be held tomorrow. We will have giving challenges, an alumni scavenger hunt, and more. So please consider making a gift to support students who need it now more than ever. Can't wait for Roar Day? You can make a gift right now by visiting rit.edu/roar, and your gift will be counted toward the Roar Day total and help RIT achieve its $1.5 million goal. Now on to our session where we are pleased to welcome back Gale Gand. Gale is a pastry chef and was a founder and partner in the Michelin 2-star restaurant True in Chicago. She hosted Food Network's long-running show Sweet Dreams, is the author of 8 cookbooks, and worked with Julia Child on her book and PBS series, Baking with Julia. Gale teaches cooking classes all over the country and is an artisanal soda pop maker producing Gale's Root Beer, which is sold nationally. She has received 2 James Beard Awards, went to cooking school in Paris at La Varenne, and is a graduate of RIT's School for American Craftsmen Metalsmithing Program, class of '81. Gale appears at many food and wine festivals across the country and is a professional pie and food competition judge. She is the mother of 3 and plays the ukulele. And one fun fact before we let Gale take it away, Gale once made a peach cobbler for Aretha Franklin. Gale, thank you for joining us. The audience is all yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me to let everyone into my kitchen. So thanks for coming to my kitchen tonight, guys. I know it's quarantine and so we can't really meet in person. So I really appreciate you joining me in my kitchen tonight. I want to get a show of hands. If you could put something in the chat to Sharon, just to let her know if you're cooking along with me or not. I know we sent the recipe out ahead of time so you guys could assemble ingredients, get your equipment together. And I just kind of want to know, out of the 100 and something people that are out there, how many of you are cooking with me? If no one's cooking with me, I go at a slightly faster pace, but if you guys are cooking with me, I might kind of slow it down a little bit. So just wanted to get a show of hands. And I'm seeing a lot of yeses already. So that kind of tells me what I needed to know. If you do have any questions or I'm going too fast, just in the chat, type to Sharon and she will vocalize your questions to me. And I want to welcome back anyone who was at my last webinar. Thank you so much for returning, and really appreciate anybody who signed up for the first time. Apparently my session here tonight is the second most popular. So thank you for making me so popular. I really appreciate it. You'll notice I'm dressed and ready to go. I've got my RIT apron on. So if anybody has one out there, put it on now. I also have my RIT mug. So these came to me in the mail, and I just want to thank Linda at RIT for sending these out to me so I could get in the spirit tonight. I designed a special dessert just for RIT that is orange, so it's our colors. We're gonna do a peach upside down cake. Well, I'm calling it a peach tiger upside down cake. So we've got our tiger in there. We're not ready to roar yet. Apparently roar day is tomorrow, but if you feel like roaring early, just go ahead, I won't even hear you. So let's get started. I've got an 8-inch cake pan that we're gonna use and a piece of parchment paper here right on my table. So first thing I wanna do is just cut a circle of parchment to line my pan with. We'll get the pan ready. And what I like to do is just take a Sharpie and draw around my pan. That way it'll be the right size. It'll fit in exactly how I need it to. So just go around the outside of your pan. See, I've got a circle there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that circle out. If you can find some scissors, that'd be great. And just cut around that line. So not really the outside of the line, but more the inside of the line so that it fits down into the pan. We're gonna use this to make it easy to get the whole cake out at the very end. Let's just cut a little bit more. And then as we put this into the pan, remember, we're going to put it Sharpie side down. So it's not going to be Sharpie side up where the cake batter might touch it. You know, common sense, right? But sometimes I forget. So it's going to go Sharpie side down into the pan. Just kind of tuck it in there. And the other thing I want to do is just butter and flour the sides of the pan so the cake doesn't stick. I'm going to actually use Baker's Joy. It's like a spray that is not only oil, but flour as well. So I'm just spraying it like right on the walls to keep the cake from sticking. There you go. So now our pan's ready to go. So let's get the first layer ready. So we're gonna do some sugar, like brown sugar, butter, and peaches in the bottom of the pan. Then we'll make the cake batter and put it over and bake it off. And then I wanna make some brown sugar whipped cream with you guys, okay? So first thing I wanna do, I'm just gonna put a cutting board on my work surface here, but I don't know if you notice, the cutting board's really slippery. So what I like to do to keep things safe and secure is just take a damp paper towel and put it underneath your cutting board. And that way it kind of grabs onto the board and now it doesn't slide around on the surface. They also make like rubber mats you can buy to put underneath, but I think they're like 18 bucks. So feel free to spend 18 bucks or use a paper towel that's damp. Okay, so next thing we want to do is combine we've got 2 measurements of butter, right? I've got 4 tablespoons and 4 tablespoons. Let's put the first 4 tablespoons into the mixer. We're gonna use I have a whisk attachment here. And if you've just got a hand mixer, that's fine too. So we're gonna beat this butter with some brown sugar. A half a cup of, I'm gonna use light brown sugar, but if you've got dark brown, that's okay too. So go ahead and measure out half a cup of brown sugar. You're gonna pack it really firm, really tight, right? And level it off with your hand. Keep that nearby though, we're gonna use it for the whipped cream as well. So go ahead and add that brown sugar to your mixer. And then let's combine those. We're not really creaming or like aerating it all. We don't have to make the butter fluffy. We just wanna really combine those 2 ingredients, the butter and the brown sugar. And that's gonna make like a schmear that we're gonna spread on the bottom of the pan. Hopefully your butter is room temperature. I took mine out probably about 4 hours ago. If your butter's too hard, feel free to hit it in the microwave a little bit. You know, give it like 5 to 10 seconds in the microwave to soften it up. It'll be a lot easier to work with. I'm just combining the brown sugar and butter till they're pretty much mixed. So see, it's still kind of like a little bit chunky there, but they're mixed together. So let's go ahead and add that to the pan, to our cake pan. I'm just gonna dump it in there for now, and then we'll spread it out a little bit, okay? So scrape your bowl well. And we're gonna use the same bowl for the next part of the batter. So don't feel like you have to wash it out. We're going to be using, you know, butter and sugar, more of the same. So no need to wash the bowl. But in my cake pan, I've got that brown sugar and butter that we just creamed together. So let's see if you can go ahead and kind of spread it out, or if it's sticking to your spatula, just kind of grab it and sprinkle it around. If you've got a little offset spatula, sometimes that's a good way to do it. Let's see if I can find one here. Oh, here you go. So like a little offset might be nice to go ahead and spread that brown sugar and butter. And if you find that you need to hold on to the paper a little bit, that's okay. Just kind of put your finger on it and spread that brown sugar butter around. It doesn't have to be totally even because it is going to melt later, but just kind of smoosh it around so it's covering most of the bottom of your parchment, okay? Great, so you can see mine has like a couple spots that they're, you know, the paper's showing a little bit. That's perfectly fine. All right, next thing we want to do is cut the peaches. So I'm hoping you guys were able to find peaches. I know it's kind of the end of stone fruit season. If you can't find peaches, like fresh ones, feel free to use canned. That's perfectly fine. But you can use other fruits, like you can use plums, you can use pears. This works with apples. So as we go into apple season, that might be a way to go. But let's just, I found these great sort of end of the season peaches. They're pretty big. So I'm probably not going to need 2 whole peaches, like I said in the recipe, because these are fairly large. But just to show you how to deal with a peach, usually there's like a seam on it. When you're looking at peaches, if that seam is really like a deep crevice, that means the peach wasn't on the tree long enough to get enough water. So you want to look for peaches that are really like full, and that line going down it is actually kind of full and expanded, not like a deep crack, okay? But what I'm going to do is just cut around the peach on that seam, go all the way around, and then I'm just going to unscrew it from the pit. Let's see if it'll come off. So kind of shake it back and forth, and unscrew it from that pit. So that's how you're going to get it off the stone or the pit. Now, this side where the pit is, the best way I find is to cut that one like in half and then just kind of peel it away from the stone. So one half will come off pretty easily. The other half is still kind of stuck there. So if you can, just kind of cut around the stone with a knife to remove it. Okay, great. So we've got the stone out. Now we want to cut this peach in thin slices. So usually I can get about, for this big peach, I get about 10 slices out of this, out of a half. So try to cut it as thin as you can. So, you know, about 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch thick. Let me just show you one slice. So that's how thick I'm cutting it. Let's call that a 1/4 inch, okay? But go ahead and get as many slices as you can, and then we're gonna fan those around the bottom of the pan, like on top of that brown sugar and butter. And then go ahead and cut slices of other quarters. This one too. I feel like there's a question. Sharon,
Yeah, while you're cutting, we do have a question. Can frozen peaches be used?
Oh, good idea. Yes. Didn't even think of that. Absolutely. That would work great. All right, let's start laying the peaches in. So I'm going to do, if you can see how I'm laying a slice in, and then the next slice is going to overlap slightly. Okay. And then the next one's going to overlap that slightly. So I'm just going to go around in a ring all around the edge of the cake pan with these slices, just overlapping them slightly. Okay. So we're making like a whole, almost like a sheet of fanned peach slices. And these will cook in the oven. They'll almost kind of, you know, stew in that caramel. That brown sugar and butter is going to get hot. It's going to turn into caramel and really kind of cook these peaches and caramelize them, and it's going to be gorgeous. So go ahead and lay them in there. So you guys look like this. Go all the way around. And like I said, you could do this with plums as well. It's beautiful. Apples works great. Pears, I'm trying to decide if we did it with pears, would we need to peel them or not? You know, if you used Bartlett pears, that peels pretty thin. So I think you don't even need to peel them. All right, actually, I'm gonna be able to cover the whole bottom with that one peach. So I've got, you know, the whole ring around the outside. I've got a little bit in the center there. And I'm just gonna use the 3 slices I have left to fill in that center spot. All right, so does everybody's look like this? I'm hoping. I hope so. All right, now we're gonna make the batter, unless you have any questions before we go forward.
Everything looks like they're ready to go, Gal.
Yay, okay. You guys are pros at this. Okay, now we're gonna make the batter in the same bowl that we just made the brown sugar butter mixture. So we've got that other 4 tablespoons of butter that's room temp. Go ahead and dump it in your mixer there. Let's get that creaming. And to that, I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. So white sugar, not brown sugar. So go ahead and add that in. I've got my mixer at like medium speed. Go ahead and drizzle that sugar in. And let those mix together. The other things we're gonna add pretty soon, we're gonna add 1 egg and some flavorings. I've got some almond extract here, and we wanna add some vanilla extract, or if you've got it, you can add vanilla paste. I don't know if anybody has that in their house. Vanilla paste is really, it's like the scrapings of the inside of a vanilla bean, like the vanilla caviar, I call it, suspended in some liquid. So it measures just like vanilla extract does, but it gives those little, you know, those little specks like in vanilla, French vanilla ice cream. So they're kind of fun. So look in your spice store or wherever to try to find some vanilla paste if you want to try it out. So anyway, next thing going in is going to be the egg, and then we'll do the extracts as well. I'm just breaking one. Yeah.
We've had one request to go just a little bit slower.
Okay.
Although we're all anxious to get to the dessert part.
Say again? I'm used to television where they're always rushing you. You know, you do like morning news stuff where it's like, they say you have 5 minutes to finish a recipe. And right before you go on camera, they're like, oh, her segment's cut to 3 minutes because we have breaking news. So you're like rushing through these recipes. So I will try to slow down a little bit. Okay. So I just cracked the egg in there. We've got the butter and the sugar in there mixed together, not really aerated or creamed so much, but just mixed together. And now I'm going to turn it on to mix in the egg. And my butter was room temperature. Also, just to let you know, I do use unsalted butter for most of my baking because I actually want to control the amount of salt that's in a recipe. You never really know how much salt is in salted butter. What we do know is butter is 82% butter fat and 18% other stuff. Other stuff can be water, milk solids. If it's salted butter, it can be salt. So technically you could have 18% salt in salted butter. You don't worry. But you never, you know, they could add 4%, they could add 3%, and it's a pretty cheap ingredient. So it's a good ingredient to take up space. So it's a wild card. So that's why I always use unsalted butter. That way I know how much salt is in the recipe because I'm adding it myself. All right, let's go ahead and add the vanilla and the almond extract. So we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. And if you've got a nut allergy, you can omit it. Don't worry, it's optional. But I have heard that almond extract sometimes is made from, it's actually made from apricot kernels. That has a flavor they can extract that tastes just like bitter almond. So it's not always for sure that almond extract is actually derived from a tree nut. It might be from the pit of an apricot. Also, I'm going to add some vanilla extract, a teaspoon of that. Or as I mentioned, the vanilla paste, if you've got it. That's fun. There we go. 1 teaspoon in.
Yeah, while you're adding the vanilla, is there a substitute for the eggs if someone is trying to not use eggs? And in what proportion do
you know, if they're vegan and it's someone who doesn't use eggs, I'm thinking that they have like their favorite egg substitute. There are powders that I think Bob's Red Mill makes one that's like an egg substitute that kind of helps things attach the way that the protein in eggs do. But I don't know the proportions. I think you actually like mix it up with water yourself. So I'm hoping that whoever's out there and can't have egg has something they like. If they do, could they let me know what it is? What do you guys like to use if you're not using real egg? I have backyard chickens, so I always have like way too many eggs. We got backyard chickens during quarantine for something to do. And it's been delightful, but every day you've got 1 to 4 extra eggs. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and add the baking powder. It's 1.5 teaspoons going in. And baking powder, just to kind of explain about it, it's called double acting baking powder. What that means is there's 2 actions, chemical reactions that happen with baking powder. The first one happens when you add liquid to it. And the second one happens when you add heat to it. So if you're worried that, it's going to start poofing up and making leavening, like say you take a phone call and you don't get it in the oven for an extra 20 minutes, don't worry. You still got that second action that's going to happen only when it hits heat. So you've got that to count on. So we've got our baking powder and salt in there. I did the salt, right? Oh, no, I don't think I did. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to measure that exactly. There we go. So there's the salt instead of salted butter. So let's mix all of that together till it's nice and like fluffy and combined. And while that's combining, let's go ahead and measure out the next few ingredients. I think we've just got 2 more to go, some milk and some flour. So I'm going to do 6 tablespoons of milk, which is actually like 3/8 of a cup. So I'm going to use a liquid measuring cup to measure that. I'm going to get down low so I'm at eye level. So it's more than a 1/4 cup, but less than a 1/2 cup. It's going to be halfway in between 1/2 cup and a 1/4 cup. And this is whole milk. So if you had to use 2% or skim, it would be fine, don't worry. And the other ingredient we need is just 1 cup of flour. So Sharon was asking earlier what was in my bag here, what this was. This is Sarasota flour. It's a local flour for me from Kansas City, Missouri, though it is processed in Buffalo, New York. But this is what I like to use. It's unbleached flour. And what I do when I go in there, so, sometimes I teach at King Arthur Flowers Educational Center up in Vermont. And the first time I went there to teach, obviously we use all King Arthur flour there, but they asked me, Gale, how do you measure your flour? And I thought, I have 2 James Beard Awards and like a couple of Michelin stars, and I don't know what they mean. And I said to the girl helping me, I said, well, how do you measure your flour? And she said, oh, we fluff, scoop, and swipe. So know that if you use one of King Arthur's recipes like off their website, you are meant to fluff your flour first. I kind of fluff a little, but I don't like fluff a lot. So I'm going to go in my bag here. I kind of pick a little up and, like pick it up and kind of dump it just to aerate it slightly. And now I'm going to go in and scoop and swipe it across the bag and just kind of swipe it across my hand. So that's 1 level cup of flour. All right, any questions about how to do that? So now we're going to add the dry and the wet alternately. So that's something you see a lot in cake recipes. If you add all the flour all at once, it will actually sort of work the flour too much and you'll start to excite the protein in there and it will turn to gluten, which is great for bread. Gluten is this sort of rubbery, elastic kind of protein, which helps dough stretch without breaking. Great for bread, bad for cake. We want to keep those little protein strands short. So we don't want to work the flour too much and we don't want to kind of, toughen the dough with it. So what we do is add a little flour, then a little liquid, and then a little flour and a little liquid. We're going to do that in 3. Okay, so let's add 1/3. I'm going to lower my bowl actually. Add 1/3 of the flour, kind of shake it in. And while it's mixing, I'm going to add about 1/3 of the milk. So that'll make it so the dough is not too stiff or the batter is not too stiff and it won't work the flour too much. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a 2nd third. So let's turn it off just so I don't end up wearing the flour. I'm sort of tapping in a 2nd third. I still have about this much left in my measuring cup, okay? Turn the mixer on. Let's drizzle in another third of the milk. So I still have, 2 tablespoons left in my cup there. And then we're going to add the final addition. So the final amount of flour that's here. And then add the last little couple tablespoons of milk. That's the batter. Pretty simple. Pretty delicious too, if you ask me. So we're just going to mix that together on low so it's nice and gentle until we don't see much dry flour left. At the end, I still got a little flour and I can fold that in. I don't want to overwork this cake batter, but if you see in my bowl around the edge there, I've still got some flour that's not mixed in. I'm just going to fold that in with a rubber spatula. And I actually have an orange colored rubber spatula.
Now, you mentioned you're using unbleached flour for this cake recipe. Do you have a preference of bleached or unbleached for cakes?
I do. I always use unbleached flour. Not that it acts any differently than bleached flour. It's just better for the environment. We've got like plenty of bleach in our water system as it is. And in the process of bleaching flour out, not only does it reduce the nutrition in the flour, but the excess bleach gets rinsed off and goes into the water system. So, neither of those are things that I want in my life. So it has a little higher nutrition and it's just better for the environment. So I'm going to go ahead and just scrape that batter. There, were you able to see like the little dry flour around the edge? Now it's kind of folded in. So I'm going to go ahead and just scrape all this batter to cover the peaches. All right. So just kind of plunk it in on top of the peaches. There we go. And make sure you scrape it. You don't want to waste any of it. I mean, unless you've got kids in the house who are waiting to lick the bowl, or husbands. I have a husband who's waiting to lick the bowl. So I do sometimes leave like one little strand of batter for him because he's like, don't clean it so well. I don't have anything to lick. So this is the batter on top of the peaches, but now I'm going to spread it out, okay? And I'm hoping you guys have your oven set to 350 degrees. I do have a pan in there. So you can decide if you want to set your cake pan, this cake pan, on a sheet pan just to make it easier to handle, or just to catch any juices that might fall out. I actually have a sheet pan in my oven, like on the shelf below where we're going to bake this. And I'm baking this in the top third of my oven. So my rack in my oven is not right in the center. It's like the next one up from that. Okay, so you want to go a little higher. So the top third of the oven. All right, does everybody's look like this? I'm hoping. Any questions before we go in the oven?
Not right now.
All right, I'm gonna go put this in my 350 degree oven. I'm gonna set the timer for about 20 minutes. We're actually gonna bake this for about 40 minutes. But I like to set my timer for half the amount of time. That way if my oven is overheating, or if my oven got turned off by accident, or just, something's going wrong that I didn't anticipate, there's sort of still time to save it. So whatever your baking time is, which in this case, it's 40 to 45 minutes, set your timer for half and just check it after half to make sure that, it's not browning too much at the back. You've still got time to spin it if you want. I think from years of working in restaurants, I have a little PTSD, and sometimes, your fellow workers think it's funny to like turn the oven off for some reason. So I kind of learned to always, check things after a little while to make sure it's not being, nothing unexpected is happening to it. Let's put it that way, okay? Before we go on, I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about some things that I'm doing lately. Because of COVID and not being able to go out and not being able to have cooking classes in person, I actually started a virtual cooking school. It's called Kitchen Sisters Cooking School. I actually did it with my girlfriend, Jess Dawson, who is she's a chef from America's Test Kitchen. And she was working on cruise ships for the last 2 years and got grounded when this whole thing started. So she and I joined forces, started a virtual cooking school. So I'm hoping maybe you guys want to attend some of the classes. We do adult classes and kids classes. She's got a great cider donut class on Halloween this year with a parade for the kids. She's even giving out a prize of Duff Goldman's new pastry book that's for kids for the best costume. I've got a couple upcoming classes. I've got Schnitzel Fest coming up where we're going to make foods that end in EL. So schnitzel, strudel, spätzle, and we'll do some sweet and sour cabbage. I've also got a chicken pot pie class coming up. So look for my Facebook page for Kitchen Sisters Cooking School. And you can see what we've got a bunch of classes coming up all through November. A lot of classes to help you get ready for the holidays, you know, with sides and Thanksgiving desserts. So check that out. Also, if you want to cook with me or just, you know, watch another demo, you can always go to my Chef Gale Gand Facebook page. And every Thursday morning, I do a live cooking class from my kitchen here. It's at 10 a.m. Central. I never know what I'm going to make. So that one does not really cook along. But afterwards, I'll post the recipes. I'll post pictures. And we just spend an hour together. I tell some stories and I give survival tips. So it's called my quarantine cooking class with survival tips. So feel free to join me on Thursday mornings in the kitchen for that class, okay? Now, let's make some whipped cream while that's baking in the oven because I want a little bit of brown sugar whipped cream just as the garnish. And I mean, whipped cream's nice, but brown sugar whipped cream is even nicer. And it's easy. It's easy to make. You know, regular whipped cream, you just add a little sugar to it at the beginning of whipping it up, and it dissolves by the time you've gotten it whipped. But, you know, as a restaurateur, what I've learned is, you know, if you put on a menu upside down peach cake with whipped cream, I mean, that sounds nice. But if you put upside down peach cake with brown sugar whipped cream, it's like, ooh, like it's all about the wording. So turns out, sounds way more interesting, right? But it's the same technique. So let's make a little bit of brown sugar whipped cream. It's really, you know, easy, fun, and a little bit special. So I'm going to just whip up 1 cup of cream, 1 cup of heavy cream. Got it in the fridge here. Now, some cream will say whipping cream, some will say heavy cream, and some will say heavy whipping cream. They're all pretty much the same. If it says heavy cream or heavy whipping cream, they're about 35, 36%. Hold on, someone's calling me and I need to decline. There we go. Sorry about that, I just had a call come in. Anyway, they're about 35 to 36% butter fat. Whipping cream might be like 34.5% butter fat. So they're about the same and they all whip up. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure out 1 cup of heavy cream. Same thing, I'm getting down at eye level so that I get an accurate measurement. You know, liquid measuring cups are glass, are see-through. And part of why it's important to use a liquid measuring cup when you're measuring a liquid is, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but liquid's meniscus. So liquids are not flat across the top like the flour was that we leveled off. Liquids kind of have a concave top to them and they kind of go up when they hit a flat surface. It's physics, it's chemistry. So on a liquid measuring cup, those lines that are on there compensate for the fact that they're not flat, liquids are not flat across the top. Whereas if you were to pour it into what we call a dry measuring cup, this is a dry measuring cup, it doesn't measure as accurately. So, and what you really need to do is get down at eye level to make sure that it's accurate. If you do it from up high, the angle changes the measurement. So go ahead and add that 1 cup of cream to the bowl. This is a new bowl, clean bowl. I didn't chill the bowl. People always ask like, oh, do I have to freeze my bowl? Do I have to freeze my whisk? Who's got room in their freezer for a bowl and a whisk? I don't. So no, you don't have to. I know, you know, some people say it makes it a little better. I think it just maybe goes faster, but it doesn't, it's not a make or break thing at all. And now I'm going to add some brown sugar to this. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar right at the beginning here. And that way they'll have enough time to, like the sugar is going to find loose water and dissolve, okay? And by using brown sugar, we get this really delicious sort of toasty, roasty, nutty flavor that white sugar just doesn't have. So that's part of why I like it. So let's just turn this on. If you turn it on too high, it'll start to spatter out the top. If it is spattering out the top though, one little trick that chefs and restaurants do, you just take a tea towel, throw it over it, and that way it doesn't spatter. The only problem then is you can't see it, so you can't tell when it's, you know, ready, and then when it's turning to butter. But that is a way to protect it from spattering out. The other thing we do in restaurants is you wrap plastic wrap around it. So then you can see it, except it gets kind of spattered and it's harder to see through. So we're just gonna whip that till it's soft peaks, and then I'll store it in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. Almost there. It's starting to thicken at this point. And I'm starting to see tines, like trails of the tines of the whisk attachment left behind. It's not quite ready, but I want to show you what not ready whipped cream looks like, and then we'll get it to ready. So see how it's pretty much still falling from my whisk pretty easily. And if I try to pull a soft peak, we don't get one. You know, so it's still liquidy, but it's thickened. Let's keep going. I just want to make sure you see that so that you know how far is not far enough. But it takes what, 2-3 minutes at the most to make whipped cream. All right, now it kind of looks like sour cream. It's that thick at this point. I'm gonna go a little bit further. And now it's kind of fluffy and it looks like shaving cream. That's what I'm looking for. Sorry about the noise. All right, so here's the cream now. It's not falling from my whisk the way it was before as a liquid. And when I turn that up, that little peak stays up. So that's what we're looking for, okay? I'm gonna leave the whisk attachment right in the bowl. That way, once I take it out to serve it, if we need to re-whip it just slightly, sometimes it does deflate a little bit, and you'll see like a little liquid cream in the bottom. Let's see if we can find a place to put it though. Let's see. There we go. So I leave the whisk attachment in there till I'm ready, or you could just throw like a hand whisk in there if you want to whisk it back up. Any questions about how to make the whipped cream?
Yeah, we don't have questions about the whipped cream, but we do have an interesting question.
Oh, what?
What is your favorite go-to utensil you use for baking that you like the most?
My go-to what for baking? Sorry.
Utensil.
Utensil?
Yep. Good question, right?
That I didn't already use. Well, one thing that I use a lot is a microplane. I'm kind of assuming you guys have these, but this is for grating lemon rind, orange rind, lime rind. You can also grate garlic on it. You can grate ginger on it. You can grate cheese. I even have some with larger holes. So this is the one that I use for grating cheese over stuff. But you know what else you can use this for? If you've got butter that's cold and you need to, spread it on garlic bread or spread it on toast, or even frozen butter, they had it in the freezer, but you didn't take it out in time. You can actually grate your butter over your toast or over your bread, and those little curls, especially if you've made toast, you can grate it over it. And as soon as those little curls hit the hot toast, they melt instantly. So that's a nice size to have as well. So that's probably one of my favorites. I have loads of spatulas, all different sizes. I have like little tiny ones with bees on them. I have very large ones that are pink. It's kind of medium one. This is like my mayonnaise spatula because it fits inside the mayonnaise jar to get it out. So does that answer your question? I also collect rolling pins. Let me see if I can show you. I want to grab like a fun one. Oh, here. This is a fun one. So I teach pie boot camp. So I do a lot of pies. This is my regular French rolling pin that I love from France. It's like heavy. But this is the rolling pin from my great grandmother. She brought it over from Hungary. It's much lighter, you can see, and it's sort of a tapered pin. So sometimes I love using this one just because I feel like my whole family, every generation of my family is in the kitchen with me, because it was my great grandma Jenny's from Hungary, then my grandma Elsie's, then my mother Myrna's, then mine. And sometimes my kids use it. So this is like a 5th generation heirloom rolling pin. But this is a really funny one. This is a glass rolling pin. The brand, it's called Roll Right. I think it was from the 20s. And actually this lid comes off. And the idea was you put ice in there and cold water. and it, you know, kept your dough colder. So that's just sort of a funny, like, industrial revolution kind of tool. So I collect all kinds of wacky rolling pins, you know, ones with patterns in them. I'm actually waiting for one in the mail now that has like a snowflake pattern that we use to roll over cookies. Any other questions before we turn out the cake? I've got one that I already baked for you guys to see.
We do have one, and it specifically relates to the whipped cream.
Okay.
You had any experience in whipping coconut milk?
I have. The brand I like best, I think it's called Thai Kitchen. Theirs seems to whip up the best. There are some brands where it's like really separated in the can, so there'll be like sort of a chunk of coconut fat at the top and then like a syrup at the bottom. But Thai Kitchen seems to always be pretty emulsified in the can, and you just whip it the same way we just whipped heavy cream. It just takes a little bit longer, and it never gets so stiff that it will break. So it's actually like a little safer than whipping cream. Coconut cream will whip up, and at least I've never been able to break it. I've tried, you know, to see like how long would it take for it to start separating, you know, for the water and the fat to start separating, and it just never does. So same thing, you're just gonna whip it up, just, you know, be patient because it does take a little while. Anything else?
Great recommendations on the utensils, and thanks for that info on the coconut cream. That's really helpful.
I picked out this serving platter for the cake. So this one's got like a little rim to it in case there's some juices or some caramel that sneaks, you know, that's kind of dripping out. That's why I chose one with a rim versus just a cake plate that has no rim. And here's one actually that I made earlier. So you can see the batter gets nice and golden brown. It came right up to the edge of the pan. It didn't like boil over or anything, but did, you know, use up all the volume in the pan. So the easiest way to get it out, and this is still warm. I took this out of the oven right before you guys got here, so less than an hour ago, and it's still warm, which is what you want because you don't want it to stick to the pan. You don't want that caramel to start to harden. So within an hour, even like in the first 10 minutes after you take it out of the oven, you can turn it out. So I'm just got it right here. See how it's under the glass, and I'm gonna flip it over. Don't be scared, you can do it. And then I'm gonna lift the pan off, give it a little shake to loosen it. But you can see it comes right off, and because we've got that parchment paper in the bottom, didn't even stick at all. So next step would be just to remove the parchment. Here, let me show it to you without removing the parchment. Now let's pull that off. Oh, look how pretty. Look how pretty that is. Isn't that gorgeous? Wait, I'm dripping caramel from my parchment. Let me just go throw this in the trash. Oop. Where did I dropped it? Hold on. There it is. That's one of those moments. We call it, I say WWJD, which doesn't mean what would Jesus do? It means what would Julia do? She would just pick it up, right? Even if she dropped the cake on the floor, she would pick it up. I had such a great time working with her. I got to go to her house in Cambridge, Mass. And film a couple of episodes of Baking with Julia and write some recipes for her book. It was so fun. And she is so tall, and I am so not. So that was funny too. But can you guys see how glorious those, like, you know, the fanned peaches and the ones in the center came out? Isn't that beautiful? Very happy with that. We're gonna cut into this and put a little bit of whipped cream too with it. The other thing though I wanted to tell you guys about, that I do lots of stuff. Sharon mentioned I have a root beer company, and you know, I write cookbooks, but I also just wanted to show you one of my products. I do recipes and I'm a partner in a company called Think Jerky. So it's a jerky company that's sort of lower in salt, lower in sugar than all the other brands out there. My picture is actually on the back of the packaging there. I have 2 flavors, and they're all chef-driven recipes. So there's about 5 of us who are all partners in this company that are all chefs. One of my flavors, this is actually the best-selling one, which is my turkey jerky with sriracha and honey. But I also do a beef one that's with sesame teriyaki. And I do a turkey stick as well. So if you want to order, you just ordered this online, you can just go to the website, thinkjerky.com, and place an order, okay? I also sell merch on my website, galegand.com. If anyone needs a cookbook, especially a personalized signed cookbook as a gift or to yourself, gift to yourself, feel free to go to my website, and you'll see on the left side it says cookbooks and soda. If you click there, it'll show you everything available. And then there's actually a little spot where it says go to Gale's Square Store. And in my Square Store is where you can purchase salted caramel sauce, books, root beer. There's shipping available. There's porch pickups if anybody lives in the Chicago area. So check that out. So let's go ahead and plate this up, shall we? Because I want to taste it. It's hard to just, cook it and look at it and not get a taste. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Though having said that, can someone take a picture? Doesn't it look pretty? I wish I could take a picture right now so I can post it. But just in case someone is out there and they can click a quick pic. Do it. All right, let's cut into it. Ready? So sharp knife to cut through the peaches. And I'm doing like a little bit of a sawing motion just to get through the fruit because I don't want to, smash the cake. Once you're through the fruit, you can go ahead and give it all you got to cut through. And I'm wondering, is there anybody out there who's class of 81? Anyone that I went to school with out there? I bet you never thought I was going to be pastry chef, right? Actually, I was baking when I went to RIT. I was doing a lot of pastry for photography students. So there were photo students who wanted to be food photographers, but they needed, props. They needed food to shoot. And I was actually like making all kinds of apple tarts and fancy stuff for the guys in the photo department so they could photograph it. So I was baking back then. We just, I was doing metalsmithing, so I thought I was going to be a metalsmith and a jeweler, which I was for a few years. And then I went into the kitchen and I just loved it so much I never came back out. All right, so I've got this little slice of cake here. Let's see, I'm going to put the whipped cream on this side. And did you see I kind of re-whipped it a little bit just by hand because it was coming down a little. There we go. I almost want to do like a little nutmeg or something on there. Do you mind? Do we have time? We have like 1 minute left. Yeah. I've got some fresh nutmeg and I just want to grate over the top. Hold on, let me get it out. There we go. You guys ever seen a nutmeg grater? You probably have, but it looks a lot like that microplane. And this is a whole nutmeg. I'm just going to grate a little bit over the top. Give it a little extra flavor and a little glam. So there you go. There's the finished slice. I'm sure yours is going to look exactly like that. Do you mind if I have a little taste while we finish up? And it's still warm. So I've got cold whipped cream and warm cake. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Oh, it's really good. Sorry. I always sound surprised when I taste it. It's good. And the cake has sort of like a little crunch to it on the bottom side, which was the top in the oven. But it's got this like juicy, fruity flavor with the caramelized brown sugar, a little bit of whipped cream. That nutmeg really made a difference too. So feel free to use that, or a little bit of cinnamon, whatever you've got. Any questions about how much of it to eat? So this is that first 20 minutes. I'm just going to check the cake in the oven and make sure nothing's getting away from us. No, it looks great. Temperature spot on. So I'm going to give it another 20 minutes. You do the same for yours. There we go. And when it comes out, so after this second 20 minutes, you're going to feel the top of it. And if it feels firm, it's ready to come out. If it feels still like a little wobbly, then you're going to give it like the extra 5 minutes. Take it to 45 minutes total versus 40 minutes. Okay. All right. Any questions before we finish up?
Yeah, we are all set. We were able to have time to answer the questions while you were baking. So thank you. This has just been delightful. Your dessert is wonderful. I hope our bakers at home have as good an experience with their peach cake as tiger cake, I should say.
It's the tiger cake. And feel free to email me you can email me through my website. If you've got questions about anything baking wise, or something specifically with this cake, feel free to contact me. Love to be in touch with you guys. And I so appreciated being included in this week's fundraising for RIT. I had a great experience while I was there, and I want to be able to help other kids have that same great experience. So thank you for your support this week. I appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you for your very kind words. As I did mention earlier, we will send out information on how to access the recording in the near future. And as Gail already mentioned, don't forget to make your Roar Day gift by using the link in our chat box. And lastly, if you are not already connected to the RIT Alumni Association's social media channels, we encourage you to do so. Those links can also be found in the chat box. Good night, everyone, and happy baking.
Good night. Got to go put the chickens away. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to my kitchen.